Ray, if someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes. Welcome to Eat Sleep Nerd, a podcast where you can check out, go AFK, and relax with us as we discuss all things nerd. Comic books, video games, movies, TV shows, and anything else that gets geeks more excited than the Doctor realizing that they can go to present-day London.
All right, welcome to episode number 8 of Eat Sleep Nerd. I'm Corey Winter, and I'm joined by Josh Winter, my brother, our longtime geeky friend, Jason Summer. Before we dive in, we ask that you support this show by sharing us with your friends, subscribing on your favorite podcast app so that you always get the latest episodes, and by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. And for all the things that we reference on this episode, be sure to check out the show notes at eatsleepnerd.com. Jason, Josh, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Okay, so hey is not an answer to that question, but
how you doing? Hello. Hello.
So for the audience, Jason is back in Indiana. He has left us again because he sucks. But
there were some separation anxieties, I'm going to tell you. We didn't get to watch the Halo finale together, and that hurt. I want to say there was some pain there.
Oh,
yeah,
because of the show, or because you weren't with us.
Both.
Oh, no, okay. We'll save that. But so we're recording remotely again, and we're doing nerdy things separately again, which is kind of sad. But what have you guys been doing nerdy on your own this week before we get into the news?
I actually took one brief evening and one short morning, and I played a video game.
What?
Which is something I don't get to do very often. It's an older game, but it just got an expansion. I think last week, the week before, Stellaris on PC. To my knowledge, I don't think it's on anything else. I think it's only on PC. But you play as a galaxy, not necessarily conquering. You can if you want to, but a galaxy expanding spacefaring civilization. And they just put out a new expansion that essentially doubles the volume of the game, and it kind of does encourage you to either conquer the galaxy or try to save it. And it's neat. It's part real-time strategy game, part resource management, part exploration, part everything that I like. Like, I like that kind of game. I'm not good at the twitchy games, so for me, this is good. This is my speed.
So speaking of saving the galaxy, I have been replaying for the third time, I think, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, because I'm trying to get that platinum trophy, and he's
about to mention third time. Has it only been out for like less than a year?
It's been out since last fall. I forget, sometime last fall, I think.
Wow.
Playing it for my third time. It's a long game. Like, it's just single player story, but
right.
I'm trying to get that platinum trophy. I'm like 2 trophies away. I just have to finish collecting all the things. But man, it is such a good story. Like, it might actually be my favorite game of all time.
I know you mention it like once a week at least.
And I need everyone to go play this game.
You bring it up in conversations that have nothing to do with it. Like, it is
so
I gotta
well
go grocery
made.
shopping, and Corey's like, "Oh, this is the greatest game ever made." It's like with what we were talking about.
He's mentioned that many times. And just real quick, because I don't think we're going to talk about it later today, so I'm going to mention it or later in our podcast, but I'm going to mention it here. We've talked about how PlayStation is going to start adding a lot of the older games to
the new PlayStation
to the library.
Yeah.
They're adding trophies to the PS1, PS2 games, I think. PS1 for certain. So you're going to be able to do trophies on the older games as well.
See, oh God, I'm going to spend so much time doing that. Like, I did not used to care about trophies, but like, whenever I got my first platinum, I was like, "Ooh, that felt good." It doesn't mean anything, but that felt good. I have to do that more.
It's like, how many hours did that take? Oh God, don't even look.
Anyway, so what about you, Jason, before we get into our news?
Yeah. So I haven't done too much in the way of gaming recently. I'm really excited to get back into my Horizon Forbidden West. And I do want to check out, you had given me that Batman game for the PS4 that I still want to check out. So I think after I get a little more.
Jason has not played the Batman Arkham games.
Right.
All right. Well, pause the recording, Jason. Go play the games.
Okay. I'll be right back.
If I had known, I wouldn't have let you on.
I didn't know that there were, Gatekeepers here, buddy.
Yeah, it was required reading. Yeah.
Reading how
Required playing.
required gaming.
Something.
Required
I guess
gaming.
you can read them,
Yeah.
but
I guess there's
prereq.
some reading, right?
Yeah.
But I have been watching Star Trek Lower Decks, which is just kind of it's a Star Trek parody of itself. It's a cartoon. It's hilarious, and especially if you know your Star Trek history, it's funny as hell. And then I also started watching a cartoon on Netflix called Inside Job.
Yeah.
Which is supposed to be, I guess, the internal workings of the black ops, the deep state in our government, and it's all satire and tongue-in-cheek stuff, fun stuff. But that's kind of what I've done this week. Nothing too much, but that's where I've been at.
Well, awesome. All right, let's get into the news. Alonzi, we're starting with Doctor Who. David Tennant is back.
You sound excited, Corey.
Dude, this news. I mean, Doctor Who has always been doing for like the big reunions, like every few years. They'll like even dating back to the original Doctors, like they've always had these big reunions. And so once they were able to get David Tennant back for the 50th anniversary 10 years ago, they're like, oh, surely this opens the door for him to come back in the future again. Well, it's happening. He is officially coming back for the 60th anniversary starting in 2023 next year. In addition to David Tennant coming back, Catherine Tate is also returning. She played, what was it? Donna? Was she Donna? Donna. Yes.
Donna.
Yes.
Donna.
So David Tennant and the 10th Doctor and Donna are returning. This was followed up shortly after with the announcement that Yasmin, this is going to be one of those names I butcher.
Finney.
Yasmin Finney? Finney.
I think you're overthinking it. Finney.
Yes.
Yeah.
She is joining the cast of Doctor Who starting next year as a character that goes by the name of Rose.
Well, obviously that's just a coincidence.
So Russell T Davies, who was retaking over the reins of Doctor Who, he has been kind of like teasing all this news. And when it was announced that Yasmin is joining the cast, he was like, life on Doctor Who gets brighter and wilder. How can there be another Rose? You'll find out in 2023, but it's an absolute joy to welcome Yasmin to the Doctor Who set. We all fell in love with her in Heartstopper, which was one of her previous shows, one of the shows which changes the world. And now Yasmin can change the Who-universe? Is that typo? The Who-universe? Oh, it's Who, whatever. Who-universe. So anyway, so Jodie Whittaker is ending her run on Doctor Who later this year. And the speculation is actually David Tennant is actually going to kind of bridge the gap between Jodie Whittaker and Nkuti
Gatwa or Gatwa.
Yes. So anyway, he is taking over as the more permanent Doctor. But the speculation comes in when Jodie Whittaker regenerates. It's actually into David Tennant. So he actually is going to become the 14th Doctor as well as the 10th Doctor.
Who was really the 11th Doctor because we just don't count the War Doctor.
Yes.
Deep cuts.
Wow. I'm kind of impressed, Josh.
Thank you.
So this Yasmin Finney as Rose. There was also another Doctor Who character, Rose.
Yes.
With a David Tennant Doctor.
That's what I'm saying. I'm sure it's just a coincidence.
So is this a different Rose, or is this is she the same Rose?
I think she's the same Rose.
Interesting.
Are we getting multiversal?
I think we are. I mean,
it's all the rage right now.
Yeah, I think we kind of are. Which also would explain how Donna's coming back because her memory was wiped.
I was gonna say that was actually a big thing. Like 10 made a big deal out of that. If she ever remembers me,
she will die.
It'll melt her brain. Yeah.
Yeah. When we last saw her, she kind of became a doctor because like her brain was overloaded with all this information, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And to save her brain from exploding, literally, he wiped her memory so she would forget that she has all this information locked away. And so
if she remembers anything, if she remembers anything, she remembers everything, which kills it.
Yes. So when this was announced, when Catherine Tate was announced to return, Russell T Davies, yet again, teasing all this news, He was quoted as saying, "They're back, and it looks impossible. First, we announced a new doctor, and then an old doctor, along with the wonderful Donna. What on earth is happening? Maybe this is a missing story, or a parallel world, or a dream, or a trick, or a flashback. The only thing I can confirm is that it's going to be spectacular as two of our greatest stars reunite for the battle of a lifetime."
So I have an important question.
Yes.
What are they going to do about his hair? Because
So, I'm glad you said that.
Because in the 50th, it was a little limp.
It was sad. It was sad hair.
Are you talking about David Tennant?
Yeah.
Yes.
So David Tennant's doctor was always synonymous with his poofy,
Right.
spiky hair.
Right.
Like it was a point of conversation
That defied gravity.
Right.
Apparently, back when they actually were filming the series, they actually had a fluffer, quote unquote, that actually between scenes just fluff his hair. Like it was actually someone on set whose job was to fluff his hair to look
Can
perfect.
we please use a different term for that?
Nope. So anyway,
They had a really hard time filling it just because of the application name.
So anyway, they actually already are filming David Tennant's new scenes. They are in Cardiff right now filming. He has the hair.
The hair's good.
Excellent.
The hair is back.
Is it
Nice.
his hair?
Does it matter?
Doesn't matter.
Well, just
I mean, kind of.
No,
but
not.
like,
I
does
mean,
it
not
really
really. Just
matter,
more
though?
of like a trivia point. Like, is it? I mean, it doesn't really matter, but just like as a trivia point.
I mean, he
I
still
think.
has hair. Like looking at the
Yeah, he never lost his hair.
yeah, he never
Yes.
lost his hair. So
It was just
makes you
whoever was
wonder-
in charge of it on the 50th just let a
Right.
bunch of people down.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Like it's
Well, I guess they didn't realize that was like a character defining trait.
Well, it actually was. Like
It
in
is.
in the show. Whenever he was sad, his hair would get sad. Like,
yeah.
You know, I gotta go back and watch this stuff because I
It's
don't
true,
think I
like
ever picked
Josh-
up on that.
yeah, Josh and I watched those episodes together, and it was very accurate. Like whenever he was
Numerous
supposed to be,
times.
whenever he was supposed to be upset, his hair would
Right.
would fall.
That's
Yeah.
hysterical.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, I'm gonna have to go back and find this stuff.
So anyway, lots of stuff happening with Doctor Who.
Right.
I am so excited to have David Tennant back. And Russell T Davis, he's been teasing all this stuff, and he's teasing that there's more announcements to come. So will we be seeing Matt Smith
I hope so.
or Peter Capaldi or dare I say Christopher Eccleston?
Let's get all of them.
Wow.
I want them
Yeah.
all in the same room at the same time. No
Go ahead.
CG trickery. I want all of them.
Also,
Right.
before we move on to the next topic, can you
Mhm.
believe it's been 10 years since the 50th? Like, how's it already been 10 years?
Stop that.
Well, COVID was like
Yes.
8 years.
Yeah.
And so
God. Yeah, I think the world like just kind of stopped for about 2.5 years. So does that count? Like, is it really
I mean,
10 years? I don't know.
That's
Maybe
weird.
it's like
it's really
seven
weird.
and a half.
I mean, technically it's been 9 years because next year, but anyway.
Right. I get what you're saying.
Moving on to Star Wars. Lots of things happening this past week. It was due to the Disney Upfront event, whatever that is. I don't actually know. So lots of stories coming out. The first one is how John Watts is crossing the Disney bridge from Marvel over to Star Wars, which is actually kind of impressive because he just recently backed out of directing the Fantastic Four, but somehow Disney was okay with him taking over a Star Wars series.
It sounds like it was like an internal promotion type thing.
Kind of.
I was gonna say, I mean, like it's
Is this like a lateral transfer?
like clearly he's profitable and he knows what he's doing. If the dude says he wants a break and he just wants to do something else and you had something really cool you could give him, wouldn't you give it to him?
Yeah. So Vanity Fair has gotten a lot of these exclusives over the last week. So according to Vanity Fair, John Watts is set to make a currently untitled Star Wars series, which obviously will probably air on Disney Plus. The show takes place during the post-Return of the Jedi reconstruction that follows the fall of the Empire. Other plot details remain under wraps. So John Watts, most recently the director of all the Spider-Man movies, is giving us some Star Wars. But what are we thinking here? Like, have we seen enough of the post-Return of the Jedi?
I was gonna say, my only issue with that is just I'm worried they're gonna saturate that portion of the timeline. So I don't know. I guess my concern would be I want to make sure they have a story that's different enough to be worth telling.
Yeah,
because like it's like, you know, I love Boba Fett, right? Boba Fett's great. I feel like the Boba Fett series was a misdirection to essentially give us more of a show they already had.
Yeah.
So to me, I almost would have rather just not had the Boba Fett show than get a story that was kind of half baked, or really just a way to get your other story to the place where it needs to be.
Yeah.
So like, I'm fine with this. He's a great creative. Like, I think he's going to do good things. I would hate if they got him and did a story that I didn't feel like had to be told.
So according to Vanity Fair, and this is not officially announced details, but according to Vanity Fair and their inside sources, the show is being described as a galactic version of a classic Amblin coming-of-age adventure film of the 1980s.
So
Steven
Star
Spielberg.
Wars.
Steven Spielberg. Yeah.
So Star Wars.
I was like, it's Luke.
So I'm looking at Amblin. So Amblin is actually the production studio
that Steven Spielberg started. Yeah.
That Steven Spielberg
Amblin
started
is,
with
Yeah.
Kathleen Kennedy, who is the current head of Star Wars. So some of the Amblin films of the 1980s, The Goonies, Back to the Future, Gremlins, E.T., Poltergeist. So I think maybe they're referring more to like the Goonies type of film.
Yeah. I don't know. You know, and I just did a quick search on John Watts on his history of movies, and really his first big movie was
Spooderman.
Really his first big movie was Spider-Man Homecoming, and prior to that he had done shorts or videos for music videos. So I'm
the story of him becoming the director of Spider-Man, he actually like filmed a fan type of trailer, and they saw it and they're just like, oh, we should get him to do it. He forced his way into the job without any experience. It was kind of awesome.
That's excellent.
He George Lazenby'd his way in.
That was a 007 reference.
Yeah,
I'm on that. Yes, but I don't see, other than Spider-Man, other than Spider-Man with the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. There's not really anything to kind of get an idea of what his directing style is like movie wise. So who knows what he would do with this?
So I will say,
it could go anywhere. Yeah.
Right.
This actually makes a lot of sense if this is the story they want to tell, because as you said, his Spider-Man movies are his biggest projects. Those they've been very open with were highly influenced by the John Hughes movies. So again, his niche is very coming of age, learning your life lessons, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, all that fun stuff. It would make sense to hire him for this project. So at this point, I just wish we knew more about what the project is. I'm intrigued. I'm just not sold yet.
Anyway, so more Star Wars details coming out.
Corey keeping us on track.
The Acolyte. The Acolyte.
Yes.
An upcoming series has been detailed to take place 100 years before the Phantom Menace.
See, this could be exciting. This could be interesting.
Yeah. I want to see the High Republic.
Right, because this is like supposed to be in the golden age of the Jedi, right?
Yeah, like when they're a dime a dozen. They're all over the place. Peacekeepers of the galaxy. Before they got all hoity-toity.
Yes, so details are coming out from showrunner Leslie Headland that the upcoming Star Wars High Republic set show, The Acolyte, is taking place 100 years before the Phantom Menace, and will explain how the changes in the Jedi Council led to the creation of the Empire.
All right, so this is a series?
Yes.
The Acolyte. Interesting. Definitely, the title itself really, it conjures an image of kind of a cult.
I was gonna say, I'm not sure this is going to be about a good guy.
It conjures a kind of a concept of a subversion, maybe, of the Jedi, the light side, maybe. That's what I think.
So showrunner Headland also underlined how the Acolyte is set in an apparent peaceful era when Jedi Knights are not so used to groveling in the dirt to solve political issues. This change of pace will be reflected in the Jedi uniforms, which Headland says shine with the glory of stability.
What does that mean?
I don't know. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, those clothes look stable.
So it's apparently in a peaceful era, but it can't be Star Wars if it's peaceful. So what's going to happen?
Some of you have never had to blockade run a trade federation
Roger.
off, and it shows.
Yeah. I mean, there's always something lurking in the dark. I think that we've seen with Star Wars. There's always something. It took like how long were the Sith supposed to have been subdued? Wasn't it supposed to be for generations?
Yeah, hundreds of years.
Right. So I'm sure they're peeking around some dark corners.
All I'm saying is the Jedi acolyte doesn't sound right. The Sith acolyte sounds like a thing.
What is an acolyte? Do we know what that word means?
Probably worth the Google.
Well, probably worth looking up. But to me, it's like, it's in religion.
A person assisting the celebrants in a religious service or procession.
Hence my cult comment earlier.
So anyway, there's no release date set for this series yet, but it will be coming to Disney Plus at some point. So other Star Wars news coming out is that Rian Johnson's Star Wars trilogy is on hold. And it's because he's too busy making Knives Out.
Okay, we say that.
Lucasfilm literally came out and said,
well, I know that's what they said. I'm saying counterfactually that they announced this 5 years ago, that he was going to do a movie or series of movies for 5 years ago, right before they released his turd of a movie, the middle one. I don't really remember what it was called.
Disagree with you on that one.
Last Jedi.
The only good part of that movie,
The Last Jedi.
The only good thing about that movie was what they did to Luke Skywalker, because I think it was the perfect character arc for him. That he would be this hopeful, bright young man who's going to rebuild the Jedi Order and make it better than ever, and it all burned to the ground, and he became a bitter old hermit. That's life. That was the most realistic thing I've ever seen in the entire saga. That life just burned him to the ground. Anyway, point being, regardless of what you think of it, it was a highly divisive movie that did not make the amount of money
that it was
that they wanted it to. Yeah, and it did not make the money they wanted it to. So I feel like they just waited long enough to be like, oh, it's on hold. And now we're going to wait another 5 years. And they're going to be like, Rian Johnson's movies. Oh, I don't know. It just never materialized. I'm calling it 5 years ago. It just never materialized.
Yeah. So two things. One is that Kathleen Kennedy, she was all over the interviews last week. She said, Ryan has been unbelievably busy with Knives Out and the deal that he made at Netflix to make multiple Knives Out movies. Point number two is that Kathleen Kennedy actually did an extensive interview with Vanity Fair last week. So in this interview, she said, and I quote, I hesitate to use the word trilogies anymore because Star Wars is much more about persistent storytelling. So that actually kind of ties back into this Rian Johnson news, or maybe they're just not moving forward with this trilogy and they're just not wanting to say it yet because they're thinking beyond what trilogies are.
Well, she said a lot of things over the last year or two that kind of said, we're really just not worrying about movies right now.
Yeah. So maybe
like as soon as The Mandalorian took off and they started announcing the spinoff shows like Boba Fett and Ahsoka and stuff like that, she immediately started saying, we're focusing more on the TV right now. And I mean, I'm for it. Like we've talked about this before. I think the Star Wars TV shows have outshone the movies.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's Star Wars has always kind of been seen as trilogies. Like there was the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, the sequel trilogy. And now they're saying they're kind of thinking beyond, like the trilogy model is no longer what they're focusing on anymore. So maybe this Rian Johnson trilogy is just no longer going to be a trilogy. Maybe he gets a movie, or maybe it morphs into something else, but maybe
they give him a show. Yeah.
But it seems like that it might be that he feels more successful and more and better received when he does movies like Knives Out. And apparently he also did Looper, which I was not aware of. So, he seems to do better, with these kind of slightly avant-garde movies where there's not much expected of, by the fans. So maybe, to me, with as much, I guess, negative reception he received from The Last Jedi, it kind of makes sense to me as a director. He'd probably want to step away from Star Wars anyway. Maybe this is just kind of the process that he does that.
Josh, you mentioned that, they're maybe realizing that the movie model doesn't work for them. They want to focus on their TV shows. So I kind of forgot about this movie completely. Taika Waititi's film.
Sure.
Yeah. He is
Sure.
making a Star Wars film, and it's apparently going to be the next one that actually hits theaters. Kathleen Kennedy says, we have a roadmap. And up next is Taika Waititi's Star Wars film.
Waititi? No, so let's think about this. This kind of ties into what Jason was saying, I think. So like Star Wars is arguably the largest franchise on the planet, right? At least from a brand recognition standpoint. And it certainly has some of the most vocal fans. So if I'm Rian Johnson, I put out a movie that half the people hated. To me, yeah, maybe I'd rather make my own movies that are usually very well received, and I don't have to work within the existing structure and expectations of a tremendous fan base. Waititi, on the other hand, stepped into the MCU, which if there's a franchise that's bigger than Star Wars, it's the MCU, and managed to revitalize a character that people were feeling very disconnected from.
Mm-hmm.
And is now swimming in adoration and can do no wrong. So if I'm Lucasfilm or Disney now, I guess, if I was going to release a movie, yeah, maybe I wouldn't do that other guy's trilogy, especially if he's not feeling super solid about it. But the Thor guy, yeah, I'll let him do it. Like, I think it's a winning formula all the way around. Plus, his sounds like it's probably going to be a standalone deal, you know? A one-off instead of a trilogy.
And that follows what you were just saying, what Kathleen Kennedy was saying, to get away from trilogies and established characters and tropes, right?
Yeah. Instead of, because think about how hard it is for a movie to be successful now. Like, to legitimately turn a profit, you essentially have to be $1 billion earner.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for how much marketing and production goes into these movies now, yeah, like $1 billion,
it's kind of the bare minimum now, especially if it's a tentpole franchise.
Yeah.
So maybe I want to focus more on television, streaming, series, and then every once in a while, one random little movie that's just going to pop and make $1 gajillion just because people are like, oh, it's a Star Wars movie. We haven't seen one of those in years. Let's all go to the theater.
Yeah. But again, when your comment immediately made me think of Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is just a gem of a movie, which has no ties to any franchises or established tent poles or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think
we need stuff like that.
I think maybe movies become the place where we just get the really awesome standalone movies. But if we want to like longer stories that have room to breathe, we go to TV.
Which I'm really appreciating these days. Like I am, watching Halo, watching Mandalorian, watching Book of Boba Fett, watching Strange New Worlds. I'm enjoying. Well, I guess Strange New Worlds is more episodic, so let's strike that one. But following these long narratives, these long stories, I enjoy taking that time.
Yeah, I do too. So I want to hit one more little thing that Kathleen Kennedy said in her interview with Vanity Fair. It has to do with the Solo movie that came out a few years ago, the origin story of Han Solo.
I was hoping we were going to talk about this because I know where this is going. Go ahead.
She said, she was quoted in this saying, in reference to the failure of the Solo movie, there should be moments along the way when you learn things. Now, it does seem so abundantly clear that we can't do that, in reference to using new actors to play OG characters. So in this case, using a new actor to play Han Solo when Harrison Ford was the original actor to play Han Solo.
Mm-hmm.
That was not the problem with that movie.
Wrong. Yeah.
I'm gonna politely call shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
That was not the problem with that movie. The problem with that movie was writing and swapping directing teams halfway through and having to reshoot half the movie. So putting that on, what is his name? Alec.
So Alden,
excuse me.
I was trying to avoid saying his name because I don't.
It's another
Alden,
one. Yeah, I know.
All the names today. Alden Ehrenreich.
So Alden. Alden did a great job.
Yes, he was fantastic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like as good as you could get for not being Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
All right. And my counterpoint to her nonsensical argument would be Ewan McGregor playing Obi-Wan Kenobi. who is universally loved in that role. So,
well, Donald Glover was fine as Lando Calrissian,
killed it as Lando Calrissian,
and fans were completely fine with the idea of Sebastian Stan taking over the Luke Skywalker role.
Yeah, that needs to happen.
I mean, right, exactly.
So don't get me
people are
wrong.
okay with finding look-alike replacements. So she's wrong.
And it just felt like a cop-out.
It really,
it was not a casting issue. Like if I was the casting director, I'd be pissed about that.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'd be all over the Twitters.
Yeah.
And like she didn't specifically single out any actor or character, but you have to think it was probably the main character of this movie that she was referring to.
Yeah. Who else would care? Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just,
well, I think
it's almost as if she doesn't understand her own movies.
No.
And she's not in touch with what people are not connecting with them.
Yeah. And for me, that story, it just seemed, I called shenanigans on Solo because they shoehorned all of the things that made Han Solo into one movie.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even Chewbacca, like getting his blaster, getting the Millennium Falcon,
getting the name Solo.
Right. Honestly, this is one of those things that should have been a series. Honestly,
would have been a great series.
Would have been a fantastic series
because you could have sprinkled it in
with all those characters.
Yeah.
And all those actors. Those actors were fine.
But no, shame on you, Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah. Yeah. I would hate to think that she is that she's unable to see what the actual problem was. And I don't know which I think is worse. Choosing to just kind of take a cop out on why they're choosing this route, or not being able to actually see what the problem was. I don't know which is worse.
I know. I want it to be that she was trying to do a cop out, because the alternative is she's blind to what was really wrong with that movie, and she's in charge of my childhood.
Right.
And so that is not, she can't be blind to that.
I mean,
the other thing I don't like is that the implication is that when the classic characters show up, they'll all be CG. I think we can agree that what they did with Luke by the time they got to the Book of Boba Fett was impressive. Like really impressive.
It still didn't feel natural.
But that approach has failed more than it's worked. Right?
I don't think it's even necessary to start using those characters again. Like we don't need to see Luke Skywalker anymore.
Well, it was cool.
There's a kid in me that wants to see post Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker, like at his height. I want to see that. And if they do it right, I'd love to see it. But if they're going to not do it right, or make me feel weird about seeing a computer generated Luke Skywalker, I'd rather not. I don't know, but I do agree with her that there's much more to the Star Wars universe than the Luke Skywalker or the Skywalker and the Solo lineages.
So it does seem like we're finally going to move away from the Skywalker timeline,
right,
and actually explore the greater universe of Star Wars, which I'm looking forward to.
Me too. I mean, there's so many stories out there. Give us a good space sci-fi epic. Give us some wizards with lightsabers. I'll take it.
Give us the Old Republic. Come on,
right? Give us what it was like to throw around those battery powered lightsabers. What was that like? No, with the big battery packs hanging off their shoulders so they could swing lightsabers.
The proto sabers.
Right, thank you. Wow, look at you go.
Deep cuts.
Okay. Let's move back to the other side of the aisle of Disney, to the MCU. I don't think we can ever have a podcast episode where we don't talk about the MCU in some capacity.
It's impossible.
There's always something going on. But the big story coming out this week, the thing we have been talking about in rumors since the inception of this podcast, is that Daredevil is coming back, but now it's official. Daredevil is getting a season 4 over on Disney Plus. The only person that has been actually confirmed to return is Charlie Cox in this new series. It has been detailed to be a continuation of the story, but a new series. What does that mean?
Yep. To me, that means there's going to be a different feel to it.
Yeah.
I'm worried. That means they're going to
worried.
Yeah. I'm worried they're going to tone it down.
When they have to. I can't see Disney approving of new content being that graphic.
So I'm going to retort by saying Multiverse of Madness was pretty graphic.
Go back and watch Daredevil and compare the two.
No, I'm just saying that perhaps we are reaching a point where they're willing to have portions of the universe that are more adult oriented.
Yeah.
Because I don't care what you say, you're not taking your 5-year-old or 6-year-old to see Multiverse of Madness.
Although I did go back and watch the movie a second time in theaters, and there were kids there, and that was they were crying.
Yeah, like it's not like that one is not a family.
Fantastic.
That one is not a family friendly.
It really
movie.
is. Yeah,
and don't get me wrong. I mean, like I loved it. I still think it's one of the best movies in the MCU. But the point is, I think we're reaching a point where maybe not every single show or movie is going to be kid friendly.
So like maybe Disney needs to mature in a way.
I think
Marvel does.
As we mature, Disney matures with us.
Well, think about the Harry Potter movies. Okay?
That's true.
The first Harry Potter movie, and it goes for the books too.
Yeah.
First book, like it was neat because it was always a series that kind of aged with you.
Right.
And especially if you're my generation-ish, like it was actually dead on. Because that first book came out and got popular right around the time that I was 8 or 9 or 10 years old. And by the time I was in my early 20s, the final book came out. And if you were reading it at that time, you had aged with it. Like it was age appropriate. Like it was, and the movies did the same thing.
Severe,
yeah. Became darker. It became more complex.
Right.
It became
people
more
died.
Like it was even the reading level progressively went up.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't catch on to that.
I mean, it wasn't shocking. Like you didn't need to be at a collegiate level to read it by the time you got to the end of it. But I mean, the first book is very accessible. You could read it early middle school.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you threw book 7 at a kid in middle school, he might have had to struggle a little bit. He may have had to expand his vocabulary. So I think this is a premise that works. And I think they're actually kind of doing it in a smart way by just not talking too much about it.
Yeah. I think it could go either way. I think the grittiness and the quote realism of what the series was like was kind of one of its selling points of why it was so good. It's like they didn't water it down. They gave you like a like as real as possible if this were going to be a real life situation.
So maybe it's the opposite of what we're worried about. Maybe instead of it being watered down and super MCU friendly, maybe it's going to be kind of like the Multiverse of Madness, where we are going to push this PG-13 as hard as we can. Like it's the same idea. You take a really hard PG-13 and you make people wonder, I don't know, that maybe could have been R. Point being, I wonder if maybe it will keep the same tone, but they
maybe less F-bombs and
like you edit your language just a hair and you edit how graphic the violence is, but you can have non-graphic but very visceral violence.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I'm not worried about it. I just thought the wording was interesting. It was a continuation, but no.
Oh, I'm sure it's very purposeful. Yeah, like clear. So look at it from a money standpoint. They're reviving the show because they know it's super popular and fans want it. They also know that if they super water it down,
they will revolt.
It won't be popular like it was.
You're going to lose all the people who were asking for it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So hopefully, just from a business standpoint, they don't muck it up too much.
All right, let's move into our review segment. We have officially finished up the first season of Paramount Plus's Halo, all 9 episodes. I'm going to be talking about the last episode, but we'll tie it into how we just feel about the entire first season.
Sure.
So this last episode, I'm going to start with some pros. There were, coming off the last episode, we had a lot of good things to say. But with this episode, there were some cons, in my opinion, but a lot of pros. And the biggest pro is that we got like a 15-minute long action scene that actually...
You got it in full armor.
Yeah. He put his helmet on.
We got Master Chief doing Master Chief things. We finally got all the Spartans together fighting against the Covenant, which we have not really had. So it was nice to have an extended look at that. And we got some conclusions to some questions, and more questions came up.
2 other questions.
And I don't know. This episode left me feeling conflicted. Did I like the way this show went or not? I don't know. How are you guys feeling?
I feel unresolved in a lot of ways. That's my top high level take. Josh, what about you? What's your top high level take?
I feel like they wrapped up what they wanted to do with this season in a satisfactory way. I feel like that nagging feeling is because the big things that we were expecting to happen still didn't happen. So Reach didn't fall.
Yeah.
We still don't really know where the Halo is. Like even the Covenant doesn't know where the Halo is. They didn't get the full map. So essentially, we're in the same place we were a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
Like almost exactly. A character died. That's about it. I don't know how spoilery we're being.
I think mild spoilers, but yeah, let's keep that one off the table.
A character died, but in the grand scheme of things, not actually that big a deal.
As far as we know.
Yeah, as far as we know. There could be bigger repercussions moving forward, but I don't actually see how it's going to affect the plot that much. Yes.
I do want to talk about one.
Just so you know, Corey raised his hand to make a point.
I want to make sure I don't forget to talk about this. I want to make sure I don't forget to talk about this. The thing that actually pissed me off, that was actually a pro during the episode, but after everything was wrapped, I was like, oh my, that actually really upset me, is that the Madrigal storyline did not play into the big picture whatsoever.
Right.
So here's my thought. We're going to quietly let it go. What if we just never mentioned it again?
I didn't even think it was resolved.
Dope.
Honestly.
Who cares?
Well, I'm just like, if you're going to, I mean, I didn't care about the story, but if you're going to have a story,
piss you off if they don't resolve it.
I mean, at least resolve, like
they made us watch it. You got to go somewhere with it.
And they left it out for 2 complete episodes.
I know, it was great.
It was not mentioned once during this last episode.
It was like the opposite of Boba Fett.
Right.
It was awesome. You went away from it for 2 episodes. Thanks.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, but if you're going to have it.
Okay. So
yeah. Anyway.
So here's my big pro and my big con.
Okay.
Big pro for me was, like Corey said, the big climactic battle. Climactic doesn't even feel right because it was like 3/5 of the episode. But
actually, when I looked, it was about 14 minutes long.
Yeah. So like huge battle sequence, which was great. And they busted out the Halo music.
Yeah.
Like a lot of it.
Right. And I listened to that and I knew you guys were going to be happy. I was like, oh, they're going to like that.
It felt like Halo.
Yeah. Like that segment of the show felt like Halo.
Yeah. And they did a lot of HUD shots, which I liked. Like
was
you
fun.
were doing right. You're like, oh, first person shooter again.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah. Which leads directly into my big con.
Mm-hmm.
The latter portion of that fight, which takes place after the activation of the relic, all of the epicness of Master Chief being all Master Chiefy wasn't really Master Chief.
Yeah, so this is going to be a spoiler, but I think we have to talk about it. So if you have not seen the episode, you have to go watch it or stop listening right now. But they can come back. You can come back to us.
Pause it for 45 minutes and then come back.
Yes. Right. So yeah, that was weird. Is that they killed John?
Kind of. Well, we all know he's going to come back,
and he became a Cortana zombie.
but okay. So I raised my hand this time.
Right,
so from a thematic standpoint, I loved that. I mean, the reason why is because they kind of turned the expectation on its head. They did something that never happened in the video game, and almost kind of like a middle finger to all the people who are complaining about the Master Chief not acting like Master Chief.
Yeah.
That ride in the shuttle as they were leaving, where he doesn't say a damn thing and just kind of looks around and moves stoically and stuff like that. Well, there you go. There's your Master Chief from the video game.
Yeah.
All we had to do was kill John.
Yeah. I kind of felt the same thing as I was watching. I was like, oh, that's kind of what we've been asking for, but in a really twisted way.
Exactly. I loved it. I thought that was great.
So again, reminding everybody that I have never played the Halo games until recently, and I played an hour and a half of the original Halo game with Corey. I enjoyed when Cortana and John started working together. And I really enjoyed that.
I was so happy. Yeah.
And I also felt like Halo. Yeah.
And I kind of I did hate the fact that they had to get John's essentially get his consciousness out of the way is what they did, so that Cortana could take over and use her infinite, ability to calculate and strategize as she used his body to fight off, hordes of Covenant soldiers and win the day. But up until that point, like I really enjoyed it. And and again, a little spoiler, I hate that we didn't get him back at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, you had to imagine we will, because like it's Pablo. We had to get Pablo back somehow.
Well, I mean, as long as he's just trunching around in the suit, we get him back. The question is, do we get John back?
Well, yeah.
I mean, we'll get the actor back. The question is, do we get John back?
So that aside,
yeah,
there's one other thing that I loved it the entire time, but that's kind of the point. I have never had such an intense love-hate relationship as I do with Halsey.
Yeah.
Because I equally felt an overwhelming sense of joy, A, when she was arrested, and B, when you found out that, psych. Like both times I was equally elated. I
was floored when I realized what had happened. I was like,
I did not see it coming.
I didn't either. It was a twist I didn't see coming.
But you're like, but it was earned. That was an earned twist.
Yeah, it was so her, because of course she would.
Right. It wasn't like one of those things like, oh, BS. Like, no, that is precisely what she would do. And it was probably, I would say that little twist might have been, for me, I think the best part of that episode. Because it was just like,
I'll allow it. Yeah.
You gotta be kidding me. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just, it was.
And honestly, they planted that seed in episode 1 and we still didn't see it coming.
Yeah. Early on. Yeah.
Yeah. This was regularly referenced and you still didn't get it. So no, I mean, that's, I would argue this might actually have been one of the best written episodes.
There were a lot of payoffs in this episode.
Yeah.
There were.
The last episode, I would argue, is more emotionally satisfying.
Yeah.
But from a narrative standpoint, this episode was better.
Yeah. I think this episode is probably the best one, but because of what it meant for everything else we watched previously, I think the season 1 kind of ended on not the best note.
I agree with that.
I feel like this season should have been 2 episodes longer.
Yeah.
One more episode of setup and then the fall of Reach. I think that's what it should have been.
I still want to know what the heck was going on with Madrigal. Why was it even a story?
I'm perfectly fine with never going back.
That's fine. I still want an answer.
I'm okay with it.
I don't know. Maybe they did resolve it like 2 episodes ago. Maybe I missed something, but
I mean,
they didn't. I don't know.
I mean, Soren rides off into the sunset and he's got his money and his ship and she's feeling really good about her future. That might be the end.
Maybe they're setting up something big for the second season.
I hope not. Like I cannot stress how totally fine I am. Paramount, I'm super okay if we just never go back.
Horrible. It was just
I'm
pointless.
okay if they bring the characters back, just not in that story.
Yeah.
How do we feel having seen the first season completely now as a whole? How do we feel about it? Because I mean, Josh actually shared something with us. Like one of the original Halo creators was like, "Yeah, it's good. It's just not my Halo."
Yeah, one of the original writers for Bungie and then 343 was saying that like he didn't hate it or anything. It's just not his story.
Right.
It reminded me of what Alan Moore said one time. He wrote The Watchmen, and they asked him what he thought of the movie, and he said he'd never seen it. And they're just like, "Well, they ruined your book." And he took the writer into his study, and he pulled the book off the shelf, and he goes, "It's right here. It's fine." And he put it back. And so like the point is it's an adaptation, right? It's everyone who's upset about it's not perfect. It's like, well, your game is right there, bro. Go play it. Like it's fine. This is a supplement. This is extra. This is for other people. This is for people who want more. This is for like it's people get too upset about quote unquote ruining their childhood. Like every time a new Star Wars movie comes out, it ruined my childhood. No, it didn't. Your childhood is fine. The original movies are still there.
Right.
It's okay. So I've been saying it the whole time. If you look at it through the lens of this is a different thing based on the thing you like, I think you'll enjoy it. I think it's good. Aside from magical.
So let's get into scores. Reminder that this is the season 1 score, not just the last episode score. So as a whole, season 1 of Paramount Plus's Halo. How are we feeling about it? Let's start with Josh.
So I think I was at a 5 before.
Yes.
I am going to give it a very solid 4.
But solid for what? Halsey clones.
Yeah, four Flash clones. 4 Flash clones out of 5. It was solid. It was good. I think in the long run it could be an excellent TV show because the parts that were great were amazing. The parts that were not so great were still pretty good, and only one part was terrible, and that was magical. So I'm okay. I'll keep watching. I'm excited. I enjoy it, but I'm not going to call it a perfect show.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. For what it is, I really liked it, and I know I complained a lot about not seeing, Master Chief in his armor and stuff. And while that would have been nice to see more of, I was not going to hold that against it. I think really the only thing working against Halo was that Magic Gold storyline. If it had been like a 1 episode thing, I would have been okay with it. But because they spent so much time on it and it didn't really go anywhere or play into the bigger picture of what the show's story was, it really worked against it. So I will dump my score down to a 4 out of 5 as well. Like, it was really good. I really enjoyed it, and I want to see more of it. And like, I was excited to see new episodes come out, but not perfect by any means. How about you, Jason?
I was thinking about this, and I was going back and forth between on 2 scores. And I knew that the score was going to go down for me, but I didn't know how far down, because I really felt left wanting after this episode. And I don't think it resolved as well as other first season, second season series that I've watched.
Well, knowing that there's going to be more to the story, like confirmed season 2, does that change that at all?
It doesn't. Because there was a lot of buildup, and I think there was there was some letdown for me. Like, so I'm actually going to drop this to a 3.5.
My God,
you monster!
All right, so actually averages out to be a 3.83 across the board.
It's like a 78. Like, that is a strong average show.
We liked it.
Yeah,
we want more out of it next season.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move into Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, season 1, episode 3. So across the board, I know we're all going to say it's still a really solid show. We're all still loving it.
Yes.
1000%.
And we're realizing that it is episodic, so we're going to be changing up how we do our scores. We're going to start scoring these on an episode by episode basis. But I want to talk about the most recent episode, and who wants to start this one off?
Josh, I think you should start, because I think you've been the most vocal advocate for this series so far.
Yeah. So I'm going to begin by saying that it continues to be a factually perfect TV show. Opinion doesn't even come into it. It is just, it's scientifically measurably perfect. No, it was great. We kind of like Corey said, it is episodic, but the theme that's coming through is this is going to be very character driven.
Mm-hmm.
And last episode, we got a lot of Cadet Uhura, which was wonderful. A character that really didn't have a ton to do traditionally, got fleshed out more in 40 minutes, I would argue, than she did in 3 seasons on the original series. But this episode actually focused on number 1. And that's kind of what I love about this is ensemble shows always have a hard time balancing all of their characters. This is an ensemble show that has a dozen lead characters, and it never feels like anyone's getting left out. So we learned a lot about number one in this episode, and we even got a splash of the Doctor as well. And forgive me, I can't remember his name, but even he got probably 10 minutes of a 50-minute episode to shine a little bit. But I will say the real takeaway from the episode is that I want one of those bomber jackets. Like,
those were kind of cool looking.
Like really bad. I want one. Those leather jackets were amazing. And I went on the internet to see if I was the only one who thought so. I'm not. Lots of people were talking about it. Like is one of the things that pops up. Like you type in the name of the episode and people are like, "Did you see those jackets?" Yes, I did. And I want one.
All right, so talk about some cons, because I know you've been like, this is the perfect show. There has to be some cons at this point.
Nope.
Okay.
Well, I was going to say there was actually one moment, and it relates to Dr. Mbenga's character.
Okay, there it is. Yep.
And I thought they were going to go one way with his arc at the end of the episode. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was going to be kind of this stereotypical, this trope that's kind of overused, and they actually kind of refreshed it, and they went a different direction. And I was like, so the one thing where I was going to be like, here's the first chink in the armor. No, it wasn't. They actually went a different direction and saved that little bit. And I was like, wow,
that's a pro. I want to know about a con.
I know. I was going to cons.
We're having trouble thinking of one, Corey, because it's a perfect show.
Let's see here.
No, I will say if there is a con, it is, and this is a super mild con, it's the predictability, because we know that everyone is so kind and good natured that there's no stress. Does that make sense?
Not yet.
Like several characters in this episode had big revelations that, while narratively were wonderful for character development and adding layers to these people, I knew it wasn't going to be an issue because everyone there is always going to have everyone else's back.
Yeah.
And so, like, not for a moment did I worry that Captain Pike wasn't going to keep number one's secret. Not for a moment did I think that number one was going to turn the Doctor. You know what I mean? Like, I would have been more shocked if they were held strictly to accountability. The whole point of the show is that you should be a good person, so it shouldn't be surprising. But like
I'm trying to think of a negative point right now, Corey. And
Corey, do you have one?
Do you have one?
I mean, actually, Josh said it, is that it is just kind of predictable. Like, how the episode's going to go. By the end of it, it's going to be all wrapped up and everyone's going to be fine. Yeah. And there's no actual danger because everything's perfect. I think that's kind of my con. And it's it's a big con for me.
Gotcha. Okay. That's fair. I think that's fair though.
It is. I'm not telling you you're wrong, even though you are, but, but it always feels earned though. Like I never feel like it's wrapped up in a tight little bow just for the sake of it. You know what I mean? Like they always do feel like they narratively earn the solution. So far I haven't felt like anyone had plot armor yet. You know what I mean? So I don't know. The things that I've loved about it from the beginning, the story, the morality tones and things like that. The production value is still sky high.
Yeah, I don't get it. How much are they spending on this show?
It looks like a movie. It looks better than a lot of the movies, actually. Yeah. And so I don't like it's every episode we do this, I'm just gushing about it, but I love it. It is so good. So
I'm sitting here watching these episodes and I feel like for the first time in a very long time that I'm watching Star Trek again. Mm-hmm. I've been watching series with Star Trek names on it and they've been good.
Yeah.
And I've been accepting of them because they're Star Trek and I understand what they're trying to do. But for the first time in a very, very long time, I feel like I'm watching Star Trek and I smile while I watch these. And I feel like it's very familiar. Feels very much almost like a little bit of my childhood or my early adulthood. And it makes me feel good. And I think that's probably the best thing that I could say about this series so far for me, is that it hits me at home, and I like it.
Mm-hmm. It touches his soft spot.
But I like the fact that, Corey, you said earlier, as we started to get into the Star Trek, that your only exposure was the Kelvin timeline movies with Chris Pine.
In the first season of Discovery, but honestly, I do not remember it.
Okay. So you're kind of an outsider looking in on this, whereas I was, the outsider with Halo. So I think your insight is probably a little less skewed and a little less biased than ours. So
yes, I have less expectations.
Right. So I kind of like that. And you're probably more realistic to new viewers. So what you say actually should be seriously considered as something to keep in mind.
So my score should weight higher than yours.
I think
is not what you said.
That's not what I said.
Okay.
I said no. I would say that your score might reflect the broader and the broader stroke of the brush, if you will, of those viewers that have not had a Star Trek experience prior.
All of that to say, it honestly was still pretty much a perfect episode, even despite the con of it being predictable. Because I don't think all episodes are going to be like that. I mean, we're only 3 episodes in. I'm sure we'll have episodes where there'll be a twist or something. So I'm not going to hold that against it yet. But if that trend continues, I might have to start.
I think I agree with you on that. Because I think I knew like 10 minutes into the show where the aliens had gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew what had happened to them, and I was right.
The reason that one weighs so heavily on me is that if I can predict where this is going, what's the point of me watching?
It's not the destination, it's how you get there.
I mean, that's fair. That's a good point.
No, you have a very good point. If they remain predictable, I think you're right. That's going to become a weakness. You're absolutely right.
But we'll see. There's still plenty of episodes left. So let's get into scores. I'm assuming it's unchanged. 5s across the board.
I mean, yeah,
5.
All right.
Yeah. 5 light pathogens out of 5.
Nice.